Today I'm talking about the kingship of Jesus. He's prophet, priest, and king. So this is talking about his qualifications of king according to Matthew, in the book of Matthew. What makes Jesus king? So this is Matthew 2. I wanted to do this because I was having a conversation with someone, and we were talking about the gifts that the wise men presented to Jesus. And in that conversation, he stated that the main thing was their worship, that they worshiped Christ. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that is the main point of the passage, is their worship of Christ. So that made me want to consider what made Jesus king? How did Matthew view kingship, and what consisted of their worship? So this is Matthew 2. After coming into the house, they saw the child with Mary and his mother. They fell down to the ground and worshipped him. Then opening up their treasures, they presented to him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And that term worship, it's pay respect, homage to kiss, revere, and it's shown to men of superior rank. So they knew that Jesus was going to be king, and presenting the gifts, it's them showing their reverence. They're knowing, even though he's a child, he's of superior rank to them. As an infant, he was greater than the wise men who gave him the gifts. So here's Matthew 8. When Jesus came down from the mountain, large crowds followed him, and a leper came to him and bowed down before him and said, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, I am willing, be cleansed. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. So here the leper, is worshiping Jesus, bowing down before him. And his worship is, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. And with that statement, it's basically a confession of, I need help, I'm weak, I need saving, I need to be delivered, I need healing. And you have the power, you have the strength, you have the ability, you are of higher rank than I. So for the leper to come to Jesus and saying, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean, it's a confession that you are of higher rank than I am. You have the power that I need. You're greater than I am. I need you to assist me in this way. You're strong and I'm weak and I need your help. And Jesus had the power within himself. Where it says Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, like Jesus had the power by his own hand, by his own strength. It's not that he had a greater army, like he was the greatest. His strength didn't reside in the power of those under his rule. He was king because he was the greatest. Matthew 9. While he was saying these things, a synagogue official came and bowed down before him and said, My daughter has just died, but come lay your hand on her and she will live. Jesus got up and began to follow him. And then later he entered and took her by the hand, and the girl got up. So this is the synagogue official worshiping Jesus, professing him to be king. It's like he has a need and he's showing reverence to Jesus as king, because he has the power to deliver him from what he needs to be delivered of. And I thought this was interesting because if you read through Matthew, like all the times that people come to Jesus and ask for help, they're using titles like Lord, Son of David. But here's one instance where the synagogue official doesn't use a title. He just goes to Jesus and says, My daughter has just died. Come lay your hand on her and she will live. And I think it's because he's a synagogue official. because he's in a position of authority. He's familiar with people coming to him, making requests of him. And he's probably used to a lot of people, when they come to him, using like a lot of terms of respect, flattery, titles. And he probably treats Jesus the way that he wants to be treated. Like as a synagogue official, if people have a need, you kind of want them to like come state their need so that you can fill it. It's like, I don't need you to give like all of this flattery as a prerequisite in order for me to hear you. Like, I want to help you out. I don't need you to stroke my ego. Just tell me what it is that you need, and I can fulfill your need. So when he comes to Jesus, he treats him with that same manner. You know, my daughter's just died. Come lay your hand on her and she will live. He just like gets to the point. And Jesus got up and began to follow him, and then, you know, fulfills his need. Yep, this is Matthew 14. With the disciples in the boat, when they see him walking on water, they cry out, "It's a ghost," and they're crying out in fear. And immediately Jesus spoke to them, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." Peter said to him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And he said, "Come." It's like immediately he's relieving their fears, he's meeting their needs, he's granting their requests. But seeing the wind, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and took hold of him. Said, "You have little faith, why did you doubt?" And those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "You are certainly God's son." Like, Jesus is king, hands down. When those people are crying out in fear, he answers them. He hears them. He answers them, relieves their fears, solves their needs. Within himself, Jesus stretched out his hand and took hold of him. He has the power to help them, to relieve them of their fears, to deliver them. And he uses all of his strength and power to serve and help and deliver. And this is the Gentile woman with the daughter who's cruelly possessed. She came and began to, after she, cried out for help, and she began to bow down before him. So she's worshiping Jesus. All these things highlighted in blue, by the way, these were like the same instance of this word, worship. So Matthew's use of this word for worship, these are instances where, that same word is used. Bow down before him. It's like they worshipped him. They worshipped him. And here, so she's worshiping Jesus, bowing down before him, saying, "Lord, help me." And he answered, and it's not good to take the children's bread and throw it to dogs. And then later he does help her. "O woman, your faith is great. It shall be done for you as you wish." And her daughter was healed at once. This is what it is to be king, to hear the cries of the people and be able to help them, to serve them, to grant them their needs. He has the power to help them. He's of higher rank than them. And to worship Jesus as king, it's like, I need your help. I need your deliverance. I'm weak. You are greater. I need you to help me. When we worship God, when we worship Jesus, that's when we cry out to them for help. That's us acknowledging that they're king, and we are not, and we need them to rule over us and use their power to help us. And here, the mother of the sons of Zebedee came to Jesus with her sons, bowing down, so worshiping Jesus and making a request of him. And he said to her, "What do you wish?" And it's not just needs, it's also desires. She said to him, command that in your kingdom these two sons of mine may sit, one on your right and one on your left. Jesus answered, you do not know what you are asking. So it's like he would grant her that request, but he acknowledges like she doesn't know what she's asking. And for them to sit on my right and my left, it's like they're going to have to drink the cup. And they might not be able to do that. And it's like Jesus he can't grant what's not his to give. Like, but to sit on my right and my left, this is not mine to give, but is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father. And here's another instance where titles aren't used. The mother of the sons of Zebedee. And it's so funny, like out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Like there's so much you can discern just by people's words. Like even Matthew, he refers to her as the mother of the sons of Zebedee instead of Zebedee's wife. And for her to go to Jesus and to feel confident to speak this way to Jesus without using titles, just to show up and say, command that in your kingdom, these two sons of mine may sit, one on your right, one on your left. She can speak this way to Jesus because this is how she talks to Zebedee. And like even John and James, it's like they're often referred to as the sons of Zebedee because Zebedee was known. People knew who Zebedee was. He already had like a name for himself. So when people refer to James and John, like the sons of Zebedee, it's like showing that Zebedee's of higher rank. It's like, these are the sons of Zebedee. Everyone knew who Zebedee was. And so, and because people refer to him as sons of Zebedee so much, it's like, oh, it's the mother of the sons of Zebedee. It's just funny. So yeah, she can come to Jesus and speak this way and just make a request without using titles, without using flattery, because she can go to Zebedee and, that's how she speaks to her husband. Like Zebedee doesn't require her to use all these titles of respect, flattery before like asking him what it is she wants him to do. Because he already has a name for himself. He's Zebedee. Like here, Mark 3, when it talks about, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, the brother of James. To them, he gave the name, I can't pronounce that. And it means sons of thunder. Like Zebedee was basically thunder. If they're calling John and James the sons of thunder, it's basically Zebedee is thunder. And then here in Luke, when they have, he sent messengers on ahead of him, and they went and entered a village of Samaritans to make arrangements for him, but they did not receive him because he was traveling towards Jerusalem. This is what James and John asked Jesus. When his disciples, James and John, saw this, they said, Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them? But he turned and rebuked them. Like Zebedee, I think what it's saying is that Zebedee was angry, and that, by his voice, he, his commands had power. And his sons were kind of picking up that same pattern that, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them? And he turned and rebuked them. He said, you do not know what kind of spirit you are, for the Son of Man did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. So I think Zebedee had an anger problem, and his sons, James and John, were also picking up that habit, that way of speaking, of using their voice as thunder, to send commands in a way that would destroy men's lives. So I think that's interesting for the mother of the sons of Zebedee. And it just shows how like Zebedee had a name for himself, so he didn't require titles. And, his wife can go to Jesus and speak that way because that's how she speaks to Zebedee. And for Jesus to choose James and John as his disciples, I think it's like snatching them from the fire, like he's breaking generational curses, like he wants to save them from picking up that same pattern of using their words to destroy men's lives. And then, he's like teaching them to use their words, their power, their commands to, instead of destroying men's lives, saving them. So I thought that was interesting. So like, this is what it means to be king, my king and my God. From the Psalms. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my groaning. Heed the sound of my cry for help, my king and my God, for to you I pray. And then Psalm 74, yet God is my king from of old, who works deeds of deliverance in the midst of the earth. Like, to be king is to give ear to the words and consider the groanings and to consider the cries of help for others and to be able to work those deeds of deliverance, to hear the cries for help and to solve them. That's what it means to be king and God. So it's like throughout the book of Matthew, when they're worshiping Jesus, calling him king, it's like, it's because he's giving ear to their words, their groanings, their cry for help. And he's working deeds of deliverance. He's actually helping them. It's not like he tries to help and he doesn't have the power to help. When he, intercedes, it's because he's confident he has the power to actually help them. So like for here with his disciples, when the Canaanite woman came and began to cry out, saying, have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David, my daughter is cruelly demon-possessed. He did not answer her a word, and his disciples came. Like, this is what the disciples are crying out for. The disciples came and implored him, saying, send her away because she keeps shouting at us. So it just shows how the disciples, it shows why Jesus is king and the disciples are not. The disciples, they wanted to be delivered from having to hear the woman's cries. Like, it's like, and it just shows how unfit they were to be king. They lacked the power to help. They lacked the desire to help. And they even lacked the ability to hear the cries of the woman. So if you can't, like, even hear the cries of people asking for help, like, it's so emotional. I can't understand you when you're crying out. If that makes, like, if you can't hear their request and understand what they're crying out, if you can't even hear it and understand it, it shows that you lack the capacity to be king. If you can't even hear the cries for help and that you want to be delivered from having to hear the cries for help. Because that's what it is to be king. To have people come before you and ask for help and crying out for help and delivering them. These are other instances. They came to him and woke him up saying, save us, Lord, we are perishing. Like, they're worshiping him. They're acknowledging him to be king. They're acknowledging him to be God. Instead of like calling out to God, saying, Lord, like, God save us, we're perishing. They're calling out to Jesus. He's king and he's God. And he got up and he rebuked the winds and sea, and it became perfectly calm. So he's able to work deeds of deliverance. His involvement actually delivers them from what they're crying out for. It's not like people who want to help and they get involved and they don't know what they're doing and they eventually make it worse. It's like, no, Jesus actually works deeds of deliverance. Here's two other instances about two blind men. In Matthew 9 and Matthew 20, they're crying out, Lord, have mercy on us, Son of David. And yeah, he has the power within himself. He touched their eyes, and their eyes were opened, regained their sight. Another, they're imploring him, Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, fearfully tormented. Jesus said to him, I will come and heal him. I'll get up and go. Servant was healed that very moment. It's like he rises up and he goes. He has the power in himself. Yep, Jesus' power solves problems. Like this woman with the hemorrhage for 12 years, it's like there's physicians and they have the power to heal, and she's going to them. And not only do they fail to heal her of her issue, they instead made it worse. So it's like, I think we use this with like, the health system today, where it's kind of like symptom management. And it's like they want to keep you as a customer. And it's like their power doesn't actually work deeds of deliverance. And it just shows how, like with their power compared to Jesus, it just shows how great Jesus is. That she's able to be cured of her disease. Yeah. And he's a king who submits to authority. Jesus' submission to God is demonstrated by following God's example and imitating the character of God. So I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Therefore, you are to be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Like Jesus doesn't see himself as above the law, above the standards. He perfectly submits to his higher authority, which is God. And because God does good and serves both the righteous and the unrighteous, Jesus also gets up and goes for both the righteous and the unrighteous. God is doing good and giving life to all. So Jesus follows that same pattern. He does good and gives life to all who call upon him. Matthew 7, if you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give what is good to those who ask him? Like when we cry out to God for help or to ask for things, God will only give us that which is good for us. And that's such good news for us, that God as our Father is in control of that, and we can have comfort in that. And Jesus demonstrates that same that same pattern. Like when the mother of the sons of Zebedee makes that request, there's hesitation. Like, you don't know what you're asking for. He doesn't immediately say yes. He has consideration. Like, in order for me to grant James and John this, they're going to have to suffer. And you might not know what you're asking for. Like, he's considerate of the other person and their strengths and their weaknesses and what they need and what will be good for them. So he doesn't just say yes to show, like, he's not just like trying to please man. He's actually considerate of the other person. And even with the Gentile woman's request, he's like, it's not good that I, give the children's bread to the dogs. And she, demonstrates her faith. And I think it shows that she demonstrates that she is a child, maybe. For her to say, oh, woman, your faith is great. It'll be granted. But Satan and King Herod, they grant requests and fulfill desires without consideration of the person's best interest. Worship me in all, like everything, all that you see, all the kingdoms will be yours. And when the daughter of Herodias, asked for the head of John the Baptist on the platter, look, the king gave it to her. That's not good. He shouldn't have granted that request and fulfilled that desire. So it just shows how good it is for Jesus to be king, and that when we come to him and ask for something, if we don't get it, it's because, it's not good. And he's so righteous, so righteous. Even when, like the leper, he heals him of his leprosy. See that you tell no one, but go, show yourself to the priest, and present the offering that Moses commanded. Like he acknowledges the authority of Moses. Hey, don't forget, present the offering that Moses commanded as a testimony to them. Make sure you fulfill the law. He's so righteous. And like here with this conversation with Peter, who do you say that I am? Simon Peter answered, you are the Christ, Son of the living God. And Jesus said to him, blessed are you. Flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. I also say that you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. I think this rock is God, is the living God. The rock is his Father who is in heaven. That's the foundation that he's building his church on, who God is, following his example. All of his teachings, it's just being imitators of God. He's doing the works of God. He's speaking the words of God. Everything is related back to God and his example and his creation. That's the rock that Jesus is building his church. The rock is the living God, his Father who is in heaven, who he is, making him known. Like in Hebrews, this is talking about Abraham, 11 verse 9. By faith he lived as an alien in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, fellow heirs of the same promise. For he was looking for the city which has foundations, whose architect and builder is God. Like this is the city that Jesus is building. It's a city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. Jesus is functioning as God. He's building his church, imitating who the living God is. The living God is the foundation of Jesus's church, and God is building his church with Jesus. Jesus is God also, and he's building his church with the foundation. That's the rock, the living God. And I really like this verse in Acts 14, when Barnabas is preaching about they should turn to a living God who made the heaven, the earth, and the sea, and all that is in them. He did not leave himself without a witness, in that he did good and gave rains from heaven and fruitful seasons, satisfying your hearts with food and gladness. This is who the living God is. This is how he has left a witness to us of who he is. He's done good to us. He's given us rain from heavens and fruitful seasons, and satisfied our hearts with food and gladness. Like this is the foundation. This is the rock that Jesus is building his church. It's the foundation, the living God and who he is. He does good. He gives rain from heaven and fruitful seasons, satisfying hearts with food and gladness towards all men. God is kind to the righteous and the unrighteous, to the, he's kind to evil and ungrateful men. This is God's behavior towards all men. It's not conditional. God sustains the life of all. God is good. He's the living God. His works bring forth life. He's not a destroyer. Like James and John, do you want us to send fire to destroy them? You do not know what spirit you are of. God is not a destroyer. God's works and words bring forth life. Yep. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven, for he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good. I kind of talked about this earlier, how Jesus imitates the works of God. God causes his sun to rise on the evil and good. So when people come Jesus for help. It doesn't matter who they are, if they're unrighteous or unrighteous. If what they're asking for is good, Jesus is going to get up and go and fulfill their need. That's who God is, and that's who Jesus is. And that's the foundation that he built his church. That's the rock. So what angers the king? When his actions aren't imitated. And this is a parable that he gave to Peter about forgiveness, where a slave owed the king much, and when he wasn't able to repay, he fell to the ground and prostrated himself before him, saying, "Have patience with me, and I will repay you everything." And the lord of that slave felt compassion and released him and forgave him his debt. But when that slave fell out and someone else asked him for mercy and forgiveness, he was unwilling and went and threw his slave in prison until he should pay back what he was owed. And even though, like, this king didn't command the slave, like, because I've forgiven you, like, go and do likewise, it's kind of assumed. Like, when the king finds out that the slave wasn't merciful towards, like, another slave, this is the king's response: "You wicked slave, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. Should you not also have had mercy on your fellow slave in the same way that I had mercy on you?" Like, this king, by his example, there's like an assumption, or it's like he doesn't have to give the command that his slave should imitate his conduct and also forgive others. Like, that should have been the natural response. And when the slave was unforgiving, that's what moved the king to anger. It's like, you received mercy, and having tasted the kindness and goodness of the king, you weren't merciful towards others. You weren't kind towards others. You were forgiven much, and you couldn't forgive. You couldn't imitate that same conduct. You didn't have that same heart. When others harm those under his authority. Jesus is a great king. He's a good king, and his kingship is to care for and to protect all of those under his authority. He cares for those in his kingdom. And when he sends out his slaves, his workers, and they're mistreated, the rest, they seized his slaves and mistreated them and killed them. The king is enraged, and he sends out his armies and destroyed those murderers and set their city on fire. He takes it personally. He has empathy with those under his care, and when they're mistreated, he takes vengeance on their behalf. He doesn't consider them as like collateral. Like, oh, they're just slaves, they can go out and be mistreated and killed. No, the king takes great offense to that. He cares for them. And when they're mistreated, he doesn't allow for that, because he doesn't mistreat his own slaves. He's a good king. He cares and supports them and provides for them. He doesn't mistreat them. He doesn't see them as like, oh, they're just here to do what I tell them to do and do all this work so that I can live in comfort. No, like, his kingship and his rule is to care, provide, feed, protect, nourish, make glad. His kingship is to relieve them of suffering, not have them labor and become weary, so that he could be afforded rest. He's a good king. Like here in Matthew 25. The king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger." "Lord, when did we see you hungry, or feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you a stranger and invite you in?" The king will answer and say to them, "Truly, I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of these brothers of mine, even to the least of them, you did it to me." He has empathy towards all those in his kingdom. He doesn't seek abundance while the least suffers want. He wants everyone to be properly cared for. If someone in his kingdom is suffering, that causes him distress. His whole rule and reign is to relieve those in his kingdom from suffering. That's what makes him God and King. He imitates the deeds of the living God. He feeds, he quenches thirst, he clothes, he shelters, he provides, he cares for. He gives life. He's a good king. And he hates unpaid labor. So here's another parable about a landowner when he goes out and seeks workers, and he brings in workers and offers them payment for a denarius, and then he brings more workers. And when he pays the workers, he gave them each a denarius, even though some came in late and some came in early. Like they all got the same wage, but the people who came in first, they were upset, thinking that they should receive more. When they received it, they grumbled at the landowner, saying, "These last men have worked only an hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden in the scorching heat of the day." And the king clarifies, "Did you know wrong? I paid you that which we agreed to." He's like, "I have the freedom to be gracious to these others. Is your eye envious because I'm generous?" Because he was generous to those who came in last. That causes the earlier ones to be envious because, or to accuse him of saying, to grumbling at him. And this is how the king pays his laborers. It's either a fair wage or a generous wage. He doesn't have people work for him for unpaid labor. He either pays a fair wage or he pays a generous wage. People aren't working for him for free because he is king. He has all the power, the might, the wealth. It would be unjust to have people who are weaker come and serve you for free. Of course, he's going to pay for their labor. That's what angers the king, is unpaid labor. God and Jesus renders either a fair wage or a generous wage for the labor performed in their kingdom. Because Jesus is the greatest on earth, he performs all his work and deeds for free. He's blessing everyone. In Hebrews 7, but without any dispute, the lesser is blessed by the greater. So when you work for someone for free, you're basically testifying, I'm greater and you're weak, therefore I'm going to serve you in this way and not accept a wage because it would be unjust for me to take a wage from you because you already don't have a lot. I'm not going to take the little you have. I'm going to bless you by helping you out and either give my strength, give my power, give my finances to you for free. If rulers can't pay the laborers that perform work that's requested by the ruler, well, that's a poor kingdom and a weak ruler. If a ruler's like, I need this work to be done, but I can't pay you and I need you to serve me for free, like you're asking for a handout. And it just shows that it's a poor kingdom and a weak ruler, and that you need the charity in the form of work for people to come and serve for free. And if the ruler's work is only performed on the basis of payment, again, that's a weak ruler. It's basically saying, like, I have limited resources. In order for me to serve you, well, I need payment because I don't have an abundance to do this for free. I'm weak. Things are tight. If I'm going to do this work for you, I'm going to need payment. Yeah. And it all has to do with like exchange of resources. Strength, power, wealth. Kings are the most powerful in the kingdom. So they distribute and give their power and resources to those under their care and authority. And that strengthens the kingdom. So if a ruler's like, in order for me to do this, you're going to have to, pay me. Well, that shows that they're weak and they're not able to do that work for free. They can't just simply bless you. They need to, they need to be blessed also with money. And Jesus hates fake kings. Matthew 23, then Jesus spoke to the crowds and his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees have seated themselves in the chair of Moses. Therefore, all that they tell you, do and observe, but do not do according to their deeds. For they say the things and do not do them. They tie up heavy burdens and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves are unwilling to move them so much as a finger. They do all their deeds to be noticed by men. Verse 11, but the greatest among you shall be your servant. And whoever exalts himself shall be humbled, and whoever humbles himself shall be exalted. And then after this, he gives all the woes. So that's why I have it in the anger category. So fake kings, they say things and do not do them. It shows that they don't even respect themselves. Like, they don't even give heed to their own words. And if they don't give heed to their own words and they don't respect themselves, it's like, well, you probably shouldn't give heed to their words and respect them also. They tie up heavy burdens and lay them on men's shoulders. It's like, well, they need to be carried and supported by others. They don't have strength to uphold people. It's like they need to be supported by others. They do all their deeds to be noticed by men. Because they lack the substance to be deemed honorable and respectable by God, they resort to needing to be affirmed by man. That's why they get offended when titles aren't used or when their commands aren't followed. Their worth rests in the titles and in others. The crowd is their king. They have the power, the crowd. So if they're doing their deeds, they just need to be seen as honorable in the eyes of others because that's their king. The people is their king. And Jesus' worth and respect is in himself. So if others mocked him or didn't heed his commands, well, that says more about the other person than it does about Jesus. Also, throughout the book of Matthew, you see how people use false worship as a means to try to destroy him. Like in the beginning of his life, King Herod, go and search carefully for the child, and when you have found him, report to me, so that I too may come and worship him. So it's like false worship, like Herod wanted to destroy him. So it's like false worship as a means to try to destroy him. Also with Judas, hail Rabbi, and kissed him. False worship. Like this was a sign. This is what Jesus used to betray him, to destroy him. And it's all due to a love of power and money. King Herod loved power, so knowing that Jesus was going to be more powerful, he wanted to destroy him. And Judas wanted I don't even know why Judas betrayed him, honestly. But by receiving 30 shekels of silver, he betrays Jesus through the means of false worship. Hail Rabbi, and kissed him. So with Judas, like money is king. The worth of an item or person is derived by money. So with the woman in, I don't know what chapter this is, with the very costly perfume, and she was pouring it out, and he became indignant. You know, why this waste? This perfume might have been sold for a high price and the money given to the poor. Like Judas saw that perfume as valuable because of the cost that man has ascribed to it. But with Jesus, the ascribed value of Jesus was 30 pieces of silver. It's like people don't realize the worth of something in itself. It's like, if money is king, it's like, well, what something is worth is the ascribed monetary value that it has. So this perfume was very costly, and Jesus, his value was 30 pieces of silver. So Judas saw the perfume as more valuable than the person of Jesus. And her hands poured out perishable perfume, but Jesus's hands shed precious innocent blood. Like 1 Peter, we weren't redeemed by perishable things like silver or gold, but with the precious blood. If Jesus, or if Judas was truly out for money, I feel like he would have asked for more. Like he would have at least tried to negotiate, like 30 shekels of silver. Well, the woman that he healed, she had spent all of her life savings trying to be healed of her hemorrhage, and Jesus fully cured her. Like, not saying you can put a price on Jesus, but even his betrayal, he did profit on his act, and others perform the same acts today simply because they delight in them. Their only payment is the satisfaction and joy of seeing others suffer by their hands. I don't know why. I mean, it says the devil entered Jesus and caused him to, do that work. But I don't think he knew that Jesus was going to be condemned. Like here, when he saw that he had been condemned, he felt remorse and returned the 30 pieces of silver. And a lot of people say like this is like false repentance. It's like a worldly sorrow. But his confession, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. I feel like if other people sinned in that same way today, they would respond by saying, it's not sin to tell people who Jesus is. They would like justify their works. Like it wasn't sin to do this and that. But Judas was able to like fully confess, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. Where it's like, if you look at his act, it's like, all I did was tell them, who Jesus was. Judas didn't condemn him. Judas didn't like inflict the suffering on the cross, but still Judas had, I think that confession, and I hope that, his works of repentance are enough to satisfy justice. What is that to us? Like he comes and confesses, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. Like he's calling out saying, I deserve death. I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. I deserve the death penalty. And they say, what is that to us? See to that yourself. And Judas satisfies biblical justice himself through the pieces of silver. And departed, and he went away and hanged himself. Like he who sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. Like I hope Judas is cleared. I hope that his own death is enough to satisfy his transgression. Like, here's another example. False worship. Then the Pharisees went and plotted together how they might trap him in what he said. Like, they want to destroy him. And they sent their disciples to him along with Herodians, saying, Teacher, we know that you are truthful and teach the way of God in truth and defer to no one, and you are not partial to anyone. Tell us then, what do you think? Is it lawful to give a poll tax to Caesar or not? But Jesus perceived their malice. And it's so, easy. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Like, if these people, if you're going to ask someone a question, it's an acknowledgement of you think they're truthful and that they teach the word of God in truth. If you're asking a question of genuine intent, it's because you already think these things of them and you want the answer. You truly want the answer. But if you have to come to someone with flattery and false worship and all of these qualifiers, teacher, and titles, teacher, we know that you are truthful. And it's easy to perceive their malice. If you could just ask the question, and by that question, you're professing him to be teacher and truthful and teaching the way of God in truth. So yeah, false worship, flattery, an attempt to destroy him. And he's a man of conviction. That's why he's king. This is when he's being crucified. Look at how people mock him. He saved others. He cannot save himself. They think they're mocking Jesus, but he saved others. If that's what you have to, in order to mock Jesus and belittle him and view him with contempt, this is what they have. He saved others. He cannot save himself. I'm sure this person who mocked him hasn't saved anyone. And the person mocking him also can't save himself. So it's they think that they're mocking him, but they're also worshiping him. He saved others and he cannot save himself. He could save himself, but he's not a hypocrite. Because earlier Jesus said, whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. Jesus used all of his power, all of his strength, all of his ability to raise up others, to help them, to serve them. He didn't use it to exalt himself. And he's a man of his word. He holds himself to his own standard. So if he's calling his disciples, whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. He's a man of his word. He's a man of conviction. He actually believes these things, and that's demonstrated by his deeds. And these two things, they're kind of the same. They're both a form of raising up yourself. By exalting yourself or saving yourself, it's all, you're using your strength, your power, your might to serve yourself. So they're kind of the same thing. And Jesus isn't a hypocrite. So yeah, he saved others. He could not save himself. He could, but he's a man of his word. He believes these things. You can only be saved by someone greater. So, God trusted God for the deliverance, or Jesus trusted God to be his deliverer. He wasn't going to deliver himself. If you use your power and your resources to serve yourself, eventually you're going to become a tyrant. And Jesus was committed to using his power to serve others and not to defend himself or deliver himself, or exalt himself. Like even all these false accusations, like when his disciples were falsely accused, he defended them. Look, your disciples do what is not lawful on the Sabbath. Have you not read what David did? Like he clears his disciples of their false accusation. They were innocent and the Pharisees condemned them. So he used his power to clear their name. Again, why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? For they do not wash their hands. And he answered and said to them, why do you yourselves transgress the commandment of God for the sake of your tradition? So when his disciples are falsely accused, he clears their name. But with his own false accusations, he doesn't. Like all these people coming, the false witnesses, false accusations, do you not answer? What is it that these men are testifying against you? But Jesus kept silent. He wasn't going to use his power, his resources, his knowledge, his wisdom to clear his own name, to clear the own false accusations. Which makes this act in Luke with one of the criminals more meaningful. Like if you save someone or you defend someone, it's like a work saying that you're greater than them. You're a king to them. You're a god to them. So for this criminal, they were hurling abuse at Jesus, verbal abuse, verbal assaults. Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us. But the other answered and rebuking him said, do you not even fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? But we indeed are suffering justly, for we are receiving what we deserve for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong. For him to defend Jesus, Jesus responds, truly I say to you, today you will be in paradise. To use his strength, his words, his breath to defend Jesus in this state, like because of who he's defending, that work is more meaningful. He was able to defend Jesus, King and God, with his strength and his words. Makes it all the more, like that good deed has so much more weight because of who it is, who it is for. He did that, that good deed, that work of deliverance on behalf of Jesus. And it added, more weight to it. So that's the end. That's why Jesus is king. Because he has the power to hear people's cries and actually fulfill their needs.